You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 62, Nailing Down Your One Thing with Geoff Woods. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to take consistent, massive, focused action in your business and life, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm excited about this episode because you get to meet our guest, Geoff Woods. Geoff is the vice president of The One Thing. After hearing the Jim Rohn quote that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, Geoff set out on a mission to surround himself with high-level CEOs and successful entrepreneurs. Fast forward just 10 months, Geoff went from employee to entrepreneur, launching a company with the co-authors of the best-selling book, The One Thing. Geoff has been featured on entrepreneur.com and is on a mission to teach people how to live a life of focus so that they can get more done, have more, and by doing less. When listening in on my conversation with Geoff, you will discover the number one reason people fail to live the one thing over time, how the 5 people closest to you determine your future, ways the mentor-mentee experience can evolve and should, the power of being a super connector, how showing up to give instead of get opens doors, and so much more. So let's dive right in and meet Geoff. Hello, Geoff, and welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I am really looking forward to this episode because you and I were going back and forth via email on the topic that we should chat about. And what I'm most excited about is that we're going to get to hear your story and how does somebody go from employee to partner with The One Thing and Gary Keller and surrounding yourself with entrepreneurs. And I don't personally know the story. So selfishly, I'm really looking forward to everything, like the mindset behind this. How did you make the connections? How did you get clarity around that this is the direction you wanted to go with your career? So if you want to jump right in, we'll just see where the conversation takes us today.
Awesome. So for people who have no idea what The One Thing is or who Gary Keller is, The One Thing is a book that was published in 2013. It's now one of the highest rated business books of all time. In fact, there's only ever been, I found out from our publisher, 10 business books to ever crest 1 million copies sold. And The One Thing is one of them. And it did it in under 5 years. So this book just took off, and it was co-authored by Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams Realty. It's the largest real estate company in the world. So when you think of titans of their industry, Gary is that for the real estate world. So he co-authored the book with his partner, Jay Papasan, their writing partners. And how I ended up getting involved with this is just freaking crazy. So get your popcorn and sit back and relax, because this is just, I'm still pinching myself. Maybe you've been in that place where you know you're destined for more, yet you don't have clarity on how or what that looks like. You feel lost, and it's that disconnect, that lack of clarity, that it's painful. You know what I'm talking about, Amber?
I totally do. I think that anytime I've been on the other side of getting clarity, you look back and you're like, that was horrible. You feel stuck, you feel limited, and it just doesn't feel good at all. So on the other side of clarity always feels so much better.
Exactly. So that's where I was. I was in medical device sales, which was an amazing job. I loved what I did. I got to wear scrubs every day. I ran through hospitals selling a device that actually saved lives. Great job. And yet, I wasn't fulfilled. Even though I was happy doing what I was doing, I was lacking fulfillment. And every day that I took my head off my pillow and I put my scrubs on, I knew I was destined for more. And it was that lack of clarity of what that was or how I could get there that just nails on a chalkboard for me. Super painful. Here's the challenge though. I had these awesome golden handcuffs on. I'm making a lot of money. I've got great work schedule. I'm in control of my time. I didn't have a compelling reason to make a change. 2 things happened that flipped that. First was a colleague of mine had a stroke. And at the time, he was 35 years old. This just shocked me because I had just bought a house in Orange County. And my wife and I just had our first child. And my wife's a stay-at-home mom. I'm the sole provider. And I'm thinking, if that was me, what would happen to my family?
Total gut check, right?
It's like, oh, wait, you make a lot of money, but you have to get up and trade hours for dollars. So if that happens, if you're the one who has the stroke and you can no longer work, your family's in a very bad spot. I was not okay with that. The next week, my company made a change to our commission structure. They had to do it to remain competitive in the marketplace. The consequence was 40% of my income just poof, gone. So you take those two things back to back, and as the cash just starts hemorrhaging and my bank account almost hits zero, is when finally there was enough pain in my life to compel me to take action. That's really important, because how many of you know you're destined for more, you know there's things that you could or should be doing, and you are not taking the action? Is it because, frankly, you just don't have enough pain to force you to?
Yeah, I think that that's true for a lot of people. They don't have enough want to get to the other side of something, right?
A compelling reason. So I finally had that reason. I knew that I had to take action. And I heard this Jim Rohn quote that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I remember thinking to myself, who are the 5 people I spend the most time with? I wrote them down and I thought, wow, all amazing people. Love them to death. And how many of them are waking up every day, owning a massive business that makes a massive impact in the world and delivers real security for their family, which is what I wanted. 0. So I set out on a journey, which I'll ask you, what do you actually want? And based on that, who are the 5 people you're spending the most time with? And are they already living the kind of life that you want to be living? If your answer is no, immediately you get to take yourself off the hook, because I've never had a person that said yes.
Yeah, I just don't think that's true, right?
Right. But you now have the same choice I had, which is you can choose to do something about it or not. And I chose to do something about it. So I set out to surround myself with the right people, and very quickly ended up having some pretty powerful mentors. I started a podcast called The Mentee, where I was the mentee and I was recording these conversations with my mentors. And after I launched that podcast, Jay Papasan, who co-authored The One Thing, was the keynote speaker at our national sales meeting for my medical device company. And I remember sitting in the back row, like in a room of 1,000 people, just blown away by what he is sharing during his keynote. And as he came off stage, I just had to talk to him. But all those limiting beliefs creeped in. What could I say to him? Why would he even talk to me? What could I possibly give him that would make it worth his time? Yet that was my logical mind trying to tell me to sit down, because that's what was comfortable. And my heart said, you must. And all of a sudden, I'm sprinting down the side of the ballroom and I intercept Jay. I asked if I could interview him for The Mentee to help spread the message and hopefully move some books for him. And he said yes. And after a series of times of following up, I continued following up, asking, what are you focusing on? How can I help you? And he kept saying, we're looking to sell more books. So I got him booked on all these other podcasts, because he didn't know I was well connected in the podcast space. And then I followed up. What are you working on? How can I help you? He said, we're looking for more exposure. I wrote an article for entrepreneur.com without even telling him. And when I started blasting the article on social media and tagging him and Gary and saw him resharing my posts, I replied back, what are you working on? How can I help you? And he said, we are looking for a CEO for a new publishing company. And I remember looking down at my scrubs and thinking, well, I'm not a publishing CEO, but I had met 3 through all my networking activities. And so I said, you know what? I'm not the guy, but I know 3 people that are. Let's talk so that I can make the right introduction, because I understood there was power in being a super connector.
There's a lot of power in that. Oh my goodness. Let me ask you a question really quick. Would you have ever defined yourself as a super connector in your previous career, or prior to thinking, how can I help Jay Papasan? Like, was that something that was already ingrained with you, or a skill set?
Prior to learning that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? No. After, yes. And I'll explain that in a second. When Jay and I got on the phone and he described who they were looking for, I was in silence, because he actually described me. They were looking for somebody with a strong sales background, with a strong finance background, who had a track record of turning content into dollars. I was one of the top salespeople in most companies I'd ever worked for. I majored in accounting, and then I had turned The Mentee into a 6-figure business in 10 months. I was exactly what they were looking for. And so I threw my name in the hat and I ended up getting the job. So that's how this all happened. And the idea is that I understood first and foremost, if I wanted to wake up owning a massive business that made a massive impact and delivered real security, first, I had to be surrounded by those people. And second, I understood that Zig Ziglar said it best. You can have everything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want. So instead of approaching looking to get, I showed up looking to give as a habit. And that opened every door.
Oh my goodness, that's so good. So before we go further into this story, I have a couple questions. When you had determined that you needed to level up the 5 people you surround yourself with, that inevitably means you have to shed certain people from your life. And I think that that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is what does that feel like? What does that look like when you realize that you're leveling up, but the people around you aren't, and therefore you need to shed in a good way. Like there's no judgment in it, but you can't keep surrounding yourself with those 5 people and then go collect another 5. It's really 5 people. So it's a short list.
I'm going to make a suggestion on a change in words. Instead of thinking of it as though you have to shed people, think of it as your relationship is going to evolve. Each person serves a different role in your life. You have the person that's amazing to go out and party with. You have that person that you can have deep, meaningful conversations with. You have your romantic partner. You have mentors. You have a boss. You have coaches. They're all serving very specific roles. The challenge is most of us, when we look at the people that we go and we seek advice from, we're seeking advice from relationships of circumstance. People that we just happened to meet because they were a friend of a friend, or we happened to sit at the cubicle next to each other and we formed a relationship, or we started going out for beers and realized we really liked each other. And because we like that person, we go and seek guidance from them without ever asking, have they earned the right to counsel us?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Most people seek advice. Wise people seek counsel. Advice is worth exactly as much as you pay for it. 0. Counsel is based on experience and track record. So the difference was all those people that were my initial 5 are still in my life. I still invest in those relationships. They are now, but they serve a different role. They are my friends. They are not my mentors. My mentors are the people who are where I want to be in a specific area of life.
Yes, that's so good. And I love that you said that everyone plays a different role in your life, because I feel that way. We can't think that we're going to get everything from even like one coach, right? Like when you're saying a mentor, I am assuming you have multiple mentors based on a specific discipline or something that they excel at, because no one is the perfect footprint or pathway to where you want to be. You're going to be a combination of those 5 people. So you have aligned yourself with 5 people that in combination are where you want to be. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. And so can you share with me like 5 things that you're working on right now, like based on your mentors? And you can or can't share your mentors, it's up to you. But like, do you have one that you go to for like health? Do you have someone, like what are the main things you're working on right now?
So it's less structured than that. And just because someone has been a mentor doesn't mean they are always serving that role. Some of my most powerful mentor-mentee experiences may not have been longer than 90 days. But that's where I was in that season of life, and I really needed guidance there. And I had formed a relationship with these people, and we were actively communicating, and they were mentoring me. I still communicate with them. I still invest in those relationships. It's less regular now. So it's always shifting. I will tell you right now, when it comes to our business around the one thing, we're in this season where over the last 2.5 years, we've built a really successful business. We're making a huge impact in helping people control their most valuable asset, their time. And we have gotten there entrepreneurially, meaning we have done it by relying on our natural abilities. Yet anytime you rely on just your natural abilities, you'll have a ceiling of achievement over your head. And you know you're hitting up against a ceiling of achievement when you're just working hard, yet you just can't seem to break through to that next level. We've gotten clarity that we are at a ceiling of achievement based on how we are operating currently. And the only way you break through it is by getting more purposeful. You act purposefully when you identify models and systems that if you just worked the system would allow you to shatter that ceiling of achievement and achieve so much more than you ever thought possible. So I'm being very intentional about surrounding myself with people who have built scalable companies that scaled based on word of mouth, not based on cold traffic, not based on Facebook ads, not based on funnels. They built something that was remarkable, which by definition means it was worth talking about. The experience was that great that you couldn't help but share it with other people.
That's so good. I mean, that right there is another word for that would be relationships. The foundation, Facebook ads are going to come and go. This funnel is going to come and go. You lay over all of the things that I think are very trendy, that the path that you're choosing to go down resonates with me because at the core, it's about relationships. And based on the little bit that I know about you, having this podcast, The Mentee, and coming from a place of service and all of that, it's all been ingrained in you. Relationships. So it sounds like it's really just an extension, but you're going to surround yourself with people that have done it based on a system or a model, but it's still true to who you are.
Exactly. Just constantly refocusing. What are our biggest challenges? How do we naturally want to do it? And then this is what I've learned from Gary. You benchmark and you trend. You look at the people that have gone before you. You look at how they have done it. You identify the themes and you build a new model for you and you apply it to your business. And that's just rinse it and repeat. You keep doing it over and over again. But what most entrepreneurs do is they wake up, they jump out of the airplane and try to build a parachute on the way down. Well, that's reinventing the wheel. That's acting entrepreneurially. And it will get you so far. You may be able to build a very profitable business and you're going to find that you're actually shackled to it, that you can never leave. I remember when Gary Keller said to me, you're not a true business owner unless you can step away from your business and your net worth goes up. Not to say that you have to, because he stays very close to his businesses. He visits his money regularly. However, he has the ability to step away. In fact, he hasn't been CEO of Keller Williams for over 20 years. And during that time that he's just been chairman of the board, it went from small local real estate company in Austin, Texas to now number one in the world.
Yeah, that's so good. So you're looking at modeling that in the company, The One Thing, correct?
I'm modeling everything I've learned from Gary. Absolutely. I'd be an idiot not to.
Right. Okay, so when you say you're modeling everything, you mean you've decided where you want to go and you're finding models that will get you there. Just to be careful, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs may feel overwhelmed by all the ways to get to that destination. And that I think it's good to know that you need to lean on, well, the one thing, right? You need to define the model that you're going to put into place. It's not throwing everything at the wall. That you need to choose the model, work the model, have 2 feet into it, and then just let it work for you.
Yeah, so there's a way that we teach people to set goals. And it came from, I was in my partner Jay's office and he looked at me as we were preparing for a workshop that we were going to lead. And he said, do you know how billionaires set goals? And I said, no, but I quickly sat down and grabbed my pen and paper and I was super excited to hear. And he got on a whiteboard and he just drew a single dot. And he said, imagine this is you today. And if I asked you to think back to how you got here, you would think back to how you woke up this morning and put on your clothes. And before that, you agreed to accept the job here and move your family to Austin, Texas. And before that, you read The One Thing. And before that, you were in medical device sales. And before that, you were at college at UC Santa Barbara. And before that, like when you imagine your life looking backwards, you imagine it as a straight line. Here's the challenge. What most entrepreneurs do when they set goals is they look forward and they ask the question, what do I want to accomplish this year? And you see all the things that you could do. And it doesn't seem like that big of a difference. You just see lots of options. But if you extrapolated those lines out over time, you could arrive at massively different destinations. It's kind of like imagining an airplane flying from Los Angeles to New York. If you're just a few degrees off course, over time, you end up on a different continent. When you just set goals looking forward, you see all the things you can do. And if you're not careful, you can end up chasing low-hanging fruit that completely takes you away from a future reality that you desperately want. You don't even realize it's a distraction. What billionaires do is they time travel. They project themselves into the future 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, whatever someday is for you. And based on imagining that they're that far ahead in their life, they look back and ask, what did I have to accomplish in 5 years to feel like I was on track for my someday goal? And once you get clarity on the 5 year, you get to ask, well, what would I have to accomplish in 1 year to feel like I'm on track for the 5? When you set 1 year goals looking backwards instead of looking forwards, it's massively different because you cut out all the distractions. You cut out all the low hanging fruit and you end up focusing on the things that matter most. So that's what we're doing. We're asking the question, where do we want to be as a company 50 years from now, 100 years from now? What do we want people to say about us? What would their experience be like? And based on that, we have a vision of what we want to accomplish in 5 years to feel like we're on track for that. And based on that, we have a vision of what we can accomplish this year to feel like we're on track for that. That informs what we're focusing on this month. That informs my calendar for this week. And that's how you get clarity on your one thing.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so I had interrupted you with some burning questions I had, but where we left off was you put your name in the hat for the CEO position. And obviously you got it, but I'm sure there's a story here. So talk to me about, did you have those same feelings as when you were like, should I go talk to Jay when he had keynoted? Like, were you like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Or was it after they said what they needed? Was it like a resounding, this is me?
No. So we go back to that moment. I'm sitting in my car just outside my house. I had just finished up calling on hospitals for the day. I'm on the phone with Jay and he's describing the person they're looking for. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's me. And so I did what every massive action taking wannabe entrepreneur would do. I said, I got some ideas. Can I call you back in a few days? Because honestly, I knew something profound was happening and I didn't want to mess it up. So he said, sure. I hung up the phone and I sat in my car in silence for 5 minutes, which this is unheard of. I did not sit in silence ever at that point in time in my life. I walked into my house. I looked at my wife who was holding our brand new baby girl. And I said, Amy, I just had a phone conversation and I think everything's about to change. And I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up moving to Texas. And she looks at me and she goes, what? And I said, hold on. And I ran to my office. I grabbed my microphone because I knew this was a defining moment in my life and I had to record it while it was fresh. That became episode 57 of the Mentee podcast.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Is that still out there in the world to listen to?
You bet.
Okay. We're going to link to it in the show notes. And I think I'm listening to it like tonight.
So yeah, I documented that moment and all the way through me actually resigning at my medical company. But I called Jay back 2 days later and I said, Jay, when you and I got on the phone, I very legitimately was thinking about 3 people I knew that I thought would be a great fit. But when you described the person you're looking for, you didn't describe any of them. You described me. I'm your guy. So what's the process? And he said, we got a process for that. Which that began a 5-month long intense interview process that I have now learned and have used multiple times. It's truly brilliant. And I got the job.
Oh my goodness. That is so good. And congratulations for going after it. And I think that there's a lot of lessons here. And I'll just take what some of the lessons were from me. And this might seem obvious, but I'm going to go all the way back to the time you were sitting and listening to Jay speak. Because I think that many people, I know I've had this personally, my experience is that I thought I had something to offer. I thought that there could be a relationship or something, and then we talk ourselves out of it. And in that moment, that was a pivotal moment for you, and you chose to take action, but you did it really well. And I think a lot of people do this one wrong and come off like stalkers or kind of weird, like, okay, I think I could be your next CEO and I could work with you. And they jump the gun and don't really look at this as a relationship and how can I serve you? And the path you took was so obviously it worked out, but really, I don't think it's a path that often many people take. They either I talked myself out of it and then it's never a thought again, or they get so eager and just jump into it and do not fully have the end vision in mind.
What you're describing, Amber, is something that has become very clear to me since I now have a coach or coaches, and we are creating a coaching company behind the one thing. And what I have discovered is that quite often people are fighting for their limitations when they could be fighting for their possibilities. In that moment, when you see that person speak at the conference, or you listen to the podcast and you think, wow, I should reach out to that person, and all the limiting beliefs start to set in and you buy into them, please understand you are fighting for your limitations. You are fighting to keep life exactly as it is today. The opportunity is to get comfortable being uncomfortable and to fight for your possibilities. One of my coaches did this really interesting exercise, and we'll see how it goes because it's usually a visual one. But I want you to imagine if you had a piece of paper and you just drew a horizontal line from left to right. And on the far left end, you wrote the letter F, In the middle, you wrote A, and on the right side, you wrote S. And I would really encourage you to actually pause the episode and get a piece of paper. If you're driving, look at the phone and see what the timestamp is and come back and do it later. I promise you, this is profound. You got a straight line, F, A, S. F is on the left side, A is in the middle, S is on the right. If you look at that side, the left half between F and A, if that was within your comfort zone and the right side was out of your comfort zone, let's ask the question, if we followed you around with a camera and we looked at your every single move, would we see you always operating in your comfort zone or out of it? I think a lot of entrepreneurs naturally lean toward doing what's comfortable. Here's the challenge. The reason there's an F, an A, and an S is the F stands for failure. When you are always in your comfort zone, you are not going to get what you want. The definition of success is getting what you want. If you're always doing what's comfortable, you are not going to truly get what you want because what you want is more. You won't have it. If you're kind of halfway, like comfort zone, kind of uncomfort zone, that's average. That's what the A stands for. You're going to be right there in the middle. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want extraordinary success, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's why there's an S over there, because that's what success is. When you push beyond what is naturally comfortable for you, you go to what's uncomfortable and you normalize it and you build models and systems so that you can scale it. That's when you get what you want. And that's what it means to be successful.
Wow, that's great. Now, would you say that you have grown into being more comfortable sitting on the right side of this line? Like, what has had to happen for you? So take us back to like when you were in medical sales. Medical sales in itself is a very cutthroat, high sales. Like, you were probably above average from a lot of people that you knew or went to school with or went to barbecues with.
My mom likes to think so. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And then something happened that made you think bigger, right? And then your average wasn't good enough. Like you saw something even bigger, but it was going to take you getting out of that comfort zone and saying, well, going back to how you opened this all up, something was literally itching at you, like claws on a chalkboard, that there was more for you.
And it took the outside world, my colleague having a stroke, and my company changing my commission structure and me watching my bank account almost hit zero for the outside world to create enough discomfort that it compelled me to take action.
Well, I'm glad you did. I really am. This is such an inspiring story. And I think that a lot of people can resonate being at some point in your story, because right now you've really shared what it looked like before. What did it look like when you were smack in the middle of it? So now you go through this 5-month process, you get awarded CEO, and you literally have to come back to your wife and say, I told you so, we're moving to Texas. So how long have you been with the company? And what are some things that you would like to share with us about your journey of going from employee to literally CEO of one of the top 10 best-selling business books of all time? And really, it's not a book, right? It's a book, but it's the whole business behind the book that you are leading.
Mm-hmm. So let's clarify one thing and then I'll share the ahas. They actually hired me as a general manager. They said they were looking for a CEO, but they weren't looking for somebody who had a track record as a CEO. They were looking for somebody who could step in as a GM. And they were even willing to take somebody who was a few steps behind it, but that was in their natural path. That's what I got hired as. And then I moved up to vice president and I'm acting as the CEO. But the truth is, I haven't earned that title yet. And here's why. Our business isn't truly at that place yet where I am an executive of other executives. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who slap the CEO label on their business card. They have no freaking clue what a CEO really does. So am I acting as the CEO of the company? Yes. Current title, it's vice president. And you know what? I'm cool with it. I'm the one running the company. Here's what I have learned. And even in this conversation, Amber, it's almost an out-of-body experience because folks, I'm just like you. I'm just 2.5 years into building this company and 2.5 years of getting mentored directly by Gary and Jay. And you hear the type of things that are coming out of my mouth. These are not conversations I could have had 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, which I think this is really important. I heard Gary say, you're never more than 5 years away from where you want to be. Imagine everything you could possibly want. You can have it within the next 5 years if you do the right actions. Now, when you're looking forward, 5 years seems like a long time. Yet, let me ask you a question. What are you currently still striving toward that you wanted 5 years ago? What's that for you, Amber? What's something that you still like? It's a goal of yours. You're committed to it. You really want it. And you wanted that 5 years ago and you still don't have it.
Yeah, so it's actually perfect timing. So I had started my business 6 years ago. So really what I had seen for myself was being not as hands-on in my business 5 years later. I currently still do all my own one-on-one coaching. And, what does the next 3 to 5 years look like is a continuation of that, right? Like, how do I get myself out of it? How do I create the model so that it's replicatable? So I would say I'm still on that journey.
Yeah. And what if I told you that 5 years ago, had you had clarity that there's really only a handful of things that you'd have to do consistently, that if you just did those by now, you'd have this thriving coaching company that you would not be in, you'd be working on.
I would agree with you 100% because now as I've gotten clarity, I know those milestones that I need to hit. And now it's about running to each milestone to make it happen. Whereas before, if you create an analogy, you're running in circles and you're trying things out and you're not sure what's going to work. And a lot of that has to do with not aligning myself with perhaps the right coach or even knowing what coach to go to get those shortcuts to lay the foundation. Also not laying over my own model and system, which is currently what I'm in the throes of. If I had tried that 5 years ago, it would have at least been version 1.0, but I didn't do it 5 years ago.
So here's the purpose of this. I think we massively underestimate or overestimate what we can accomplish in a year. We massively underestimate what we can do in 5. If you rewind me 5 years ago, I would have never thought that any of this was possible. I was still in medical sales. I was still doubting that I knew I could have more. It didn't seem real to me. It was just a dream. You fast forward and we're having conversations like this. I'm pinching myself every single day. So here's why this matters to you. Whatever it is that is not in your life today that you desperately want, you can have. Please understand though, it does not come by doing everything. It comes by getting clarity on what your true priorities are and getting it to the point that you have it nailed down to one thing that you can do, such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary. And that's the focusing question of the book. Gary and Jay would argue it's the success habit, asking the question, what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? You aim that at any area of your life and let the journey begin.
I think that that's really good. And I knew that that's what the book was about, but that is a big question to wrestle with. So do you have any particular thoughts around how to go from not being able to answer that question without clarity to really drilling down and drilling down and drilling down into what is that one thing that has the biggest impact on everything else to make it all easier?
Can we turn the tables on you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because option 1 is we talk about it from a high theoretical level. Option 2 is we just put it to work. Here's how you do this. One of the biggest misunderstandings about the one thing is that we all have more than one thing. The deal is success is sequential, not simultaneous. It's one thing at a time, over time. So here's the question, Amber. If we look at all the areas of your life, I'm going to break them down. You got your spirituality, because every single one of us is going to wonder, why are we here at some point in our life? You got your physical health, because if you don't have your body, where are you going to live? Your personal life, meaning the things that you do for yourself to make you the best Amber possible. Your key relationships, meaning significant other, kids if you have them, friends, colleagues, coworkers, mentors, all the relationships fit into key relationships. Your job, your business, your finances. If you could only pick one of those areas, what's the one area you would want to focus on first?
Health.
Health. Excellent. Now we get to ask the focusing question. Amber, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it would make everything else easier or unnecessary when it comes to your health?
Yeah. So I believe right now, so it's the one next thing, right, for us. That's kind of how you're preferencing this. It's working out to another level.
Working out to another level. Okay. So this is where most people stop. They go, oh, I need to work out to another level. The challenge is that is too big of a domino to knock down. So we ask the question again. Amber, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it would make working out to another level easier or unnecessary?
That would make working out easier and necessary. Okay, this is totally raw coaching, so this is so good. Maybe I said it wrong. So let me ask you, Geoff. My goal here is that I feel like I need more energy. The energy allows me to be a better parent, better spouse, better business owner. So the exercising is really the thing I would do to get energy.
Are you currently exercising?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the one thing you're not doing that if you started doing immediately would make exercising at that next level easier or unnecessary?
Okay. So it would be exercising consistently 5 days a week, moving my body 5 days a week.
Great. Now let's break the focusing question down because I want people to understand why we're going to go deeper. It's what's the one thing, not two things, not three things, one thing I can do. Not that you want to do, you feel like you should do it. You'll be guilty if you don't do it. You actually can do it consistently all day, rain or shine, such that by doing it, meaning you take action, everything else will be easier or unnecessary, meaning it is that powerful of a lead domino that if you just knocked that first one down, it would knock everything else over. Can you, Amber? No ifs, no ands, no buts, absolutely work out 5 days a week?
Yes.
Then why aren't you?
Well, very good reason. You get in your own way. You're tired. Simply at the end of the day, it has not been made a priority because I have not seen it as the domino that makes everything else easier.
So then we're still focusing on too big of a domino. It's what you think you should do, but it's not what you can do yet. So let's go smaller. What's the one thing you can do, Amber, such that by doing it would make exercising 5 days a week easier or unnecessary?
Stretching my body every day.
Ooh, okay. Did you feel a difference in the energy shift between exercising 5 days a week versus stretch every day? Did you feel for yourself like how much easier that seemed?
Yeah, it seems easier. It seems doable. Like even if you're sick and coughing and heck, like you're moving your body, you're stretching your body, like it's going to build that habit of consistency and movement. And honestly, sometimes all I would need is to stretch to get a jump in my energy for the day.
Now let's be clear. When you say stretch every day, what does that mean? Let's get specific and measurable. How will we know if you've earned the right to say you've stretched for the day?
Yeah. So I would just create like a yoga routine, like a 20-minute stretch routine that I would run through, whether it be a DVD or something where it's my staple. And I could do more, but my staple is I run through the same full body yoga stretch routine.
So let's ask the question. Amber, no ifs, no ands, no buts, rain or shine. Can you absolutely guaranteed stretch for 20 minutes, 5 days a week?
Yes.
Are you sure?
I am 100% sure. That feels so much better than where we started.
Okay. I'm going to push back. This is your life. You get to choose. So if you want to make the lead domino 20 minutes, by all means, do it. I will ask the question, if you find one day that you do not get your 20 minutes, what will you give yourself permission to do?
Give myself permission to do if I don't have 20 minutes? This is a good question. I would feel like I'm negotiating with myself. If I think 20 minutes is good, why would 5 minutes be good enough?
Because it's what's the one thing you can do, such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary. This is the biggest mistake people make. They think big and they act big. They set the bar too high. They let the idea of perfection, being perfect, get in the way of what's possible. I'll be perfect if I do 20 minutes, but they can't do 20. What can you do?
I can do a downward facing dog pose.
Boom shakalaka. One thing. Can you absolutely do downward dog once a day?
Yes.
And if you did downward dog, would you be more likely to do upward dog?
Yes. And yes, absolutely.
And if you did that, would you be more likely to end up doing it for 5 minutes?
Yes.
And if you did that, would it make doing 20 minutes easier or unnecessary?
Yes, I would already be in my flow. I'd have momentum.
And if every day you were in a flow of stretching, would you be more or less likely to go to the gym?
More likely.
And if you went to the gym, if you were more likely to go to the gym, would you be more or less likely to end up actually exercising 5 days a week?
I would.
And if you exercised 5 days a week, would that transform your health?
Absolutely.
And if you transformed your health, would that shift your energy?
100%.
And if you shifted your energy, would it change how you focus as a business owner, as a woman, as a mom, as a partner, like name all the roles. Would it make everything else easier or unnecessary?
Absolutely.
Downward dog.
Oh gosh, Geoff, this has been freaking amazing. I am so honored and thankful that you switched the tables. I wish this was on video. I'm grinning ear to ear. I'm going to share for everybody, right? Like I was clammed up. I had my hands clasped together as you're coaching me. I think I'm sweating all over the place. And as soon as you got me there and then literally like moved me back up, what you just did, my arms opened up, my legs opened up. I'm like literally standing here in like a power pose. So good. So good.
Now here's the deal. Now you have clarity on what that one thing is that you're going to do first. Not to say that you don't have other one things, but this is the thing that you track. And there's a great quote from F.M. Alexander in the book. It's, people do not decide their futures. They decide their habits. And their habits decide their futures. The missing link here for you, Amber, is now you go on a 66-day challenge to making doing downward dog once a day a habit, meaning little effort, little discipline, little thought. You just are the type of person who does downward dog every day because you know if you do that, the domino effect that will take effect in your life. And the reason it's 66 days is because that's on average how long it takes to form a habit. Not 21, not 30, it's 66. And what I would encourage you to do, did you ever print out a 66-day challenge calendar after reading the one thing?
Yeah, actually I did. I mean, I printed out the stuff, right? But I read this book a long time ago. I can't say I went through it all. No.
Make a commitment to yourself that by the end of the day today, you will go to theonething.com. That's where the number one, click on free stuff and download that calendar because it's a single sheet of paper that has 66 days on it. And here's why this matters. Jerry Seinfeld was backstage on an open mic night. And there was a software engineer who walked up to him and said, Jerry, I really want to be a stand-up comedian. What advice can you give me? And Jerry said, easy, write a joke a day. The guy looked at him and thought, what? And he said, oh yeah, and get one of those big wall calendars. And every day you write your joke, put a big red X on that date. And the guy said, why? And Jerry said, because pretty soon it'll be less about writing the joke and more about not breaking the chain. So when you print this calendar out and every day you do your downward dog, you earn an X on your 66-day challenge calendar. And pretty soon you're going to start stringing a chain together and you're going to have that day that you didn't do downward dog. You're going to be crawling into bed so tired, just ready to get into the fetal position. And you're going to go, I don't want to break the chain. And you will roll out of bed, you will do downward dog, and you will go, yes! And then you will get back in bed and go to bed.
Okay, I think that's definitely going to be the case. I really, really like that. I have utilized that same methodology in creating some other habits. I can tell you it absolutely works. I use an app called Habit Bowl, and it's the same thing, like don't break the chain, and you set it and it gives you a visual, but printing it out just the same. It's the same thing. It's about, at some point, it's never about the thing. It's about keeping your word with yourself. And between you and me, Geoff, the habit could be the downward facing dog, but at the end of 61 days, when you've kept a promise to yourself, how powerful is that? Like being of integrity with yourself and your word can then be laid over so many other things in our lives.
Well, this is what's really cool when we've had thousands of people that have formed power habits going through this. You just nailed it, Amber. Once you get through your first 66-day challenge and you form your first power habit, you suddenly realize you're the type of person who can envision something they want for their future and work it all the way back to an action that they can do, such that by doing it makes everything else easier and necessary and make it a power habit. That's a whole new ball game. So can I ask you, since I know you love the coaching thing and it seems like you like being uncomfortable and getting sweaty palms.
Yeah, sure.
Whether it's a 66-day challenge calendar or your tracker, whatever, how will I know if you have committed to doing it and you have your tracker set up?
Well, I will send you either a screenshot on my app or the page, whatever I decide. And I will post it on my social media for anyone that's listening. They can follow along and go print out the same thing and do this for themselves. And perhaps we go along this journey together. And I will be doing it for my accountability. And then the upside, I think, Geoff, might be that I get to send it to you at the end of the time.
Well, I want it before. So when will I have it?
Oh, to get started? Okay, you'll have it by tomorrow. I'll email it to you.
What time?
10 a.m.
Okay, I am now doing something called time blocking, where I'm going to open up my calendar and schedule it. Amber sends me photo. What's the cost if you don't do it, Amber? What's the consequence?
Probably humiliation from all my listeners. That would be one cost.
Let's ratchet it up.
What, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, sure. What's your least favorite political campaign?
Oh, geez. I do this with my clients too.
Things just got real.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm going to tell you that the politics probably won't pull at me as much as probably something else that really...
Okay. You don't need to say what it is. You got what it is? What's a number that you would really be pissed to have to send them a check for?
$500.
Okay. Well, there we go. So by 10 a.m. tomorrow, I'm going to have an email from you with that image. And if not, you're going to be sending me the picture of the check as you send it off. And you'll have to post it. You'll have to post the video of you putting the check in the mail.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. So you will definitely be getting my setup sheet. And moving forward, tomorrow is day one for me.
There we go. Boom.
Okay, that's so awesome. All right, Geoff, I don't know where else we go from here. I'm thinking you just told an amazing, inspirational story. I think we really get to hear and have met someone that is behind the One Thing book. And I know many of our listeners have read it. I have a feeling for myself, I am actually going to go back and be rereading it because I have just achieved so much clarity through your experience of coaching me.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to reread the book, this is something, my coach had me because we were creating a coaching company. I read each chapter of the book and I had to write down 10 deadly questions, meaning questions that are so big that they stop people dead in their tracks and give them sweaty palms. I would encourage for you to write down 10 ways you can live each chapter. There's 18 chapters. If you commit to writing down 10 ways you can live each chapter, you'll end up with 180 ways that you can live the one thing.
Okay. So 10 ways, so it's 10 examples that I can utilize. Let's see, I have the book right here.
So instead of reading a chapter and just reading it, you're reading it with the intention of writing down 10 ways you can live that one chapter. And you do not earn the right to go to the next chapter until you have gotten at least 10 ways you can live that one chapter. Then you get to go to the next one.
Okay, I think that's really good. I think that's turning this book into so much more, right? It's not just something you read and consume. You're asking me to get clarity on how this applies over my life and my goals and my challenges with clarity or whatever. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, done. I think that's really good. And I think that your coaching that you did with me, and I thank you so much for doing that, allowed me to get clearer about the messaging of the one thing. Because I think what you had opened that up with is many people think it's like one thing, not one thing right now that makes all else easier. And once I get downward facing dog down, I'm assuming it's my job to find what's the next one thing that's going to get me to the next thing, right? Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Okay, this has been so good. Is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with that I didn't ask you that you wanted to make sure that we touched on?
There's the number one reason people fail to live the one thing over time is they're unwilling to endure the monotony of success. Success is not listening to the latest podcast. It's not downloading the latest action guide or chasing the new shiny object or the new productivity hack. That is not success. Success is about getting clarity on the handful of true priorities that if you just focused on those few things and did them day after day after day after day after day over time would lead to extraordinary results. Here's the challenge. Amber, doing downward dog is going to get boring. Even though we went that small, there's going to be a day you don't want to do it. There's going to be a day you don't want to read a chapter and write down 10 ways you can live it. For you who's listening to this, there's going to be a day that you don't want to do your most important priority before you check your email. You're not going to want to do it. That's when you have to remember, this is why people fail. Can you push through and endure that monotony until it becomes a habit? Because once it's a habit, it no longer requires the discipline. It no longer requires the willpower. It's a habit. And you are the type of person who lives the one thing. So if you want reinforcements, check out the One Thing podcast, download the stuff on theonething.com and go on the journey.
Okay, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today and the invitation to take the one thing deeper. Thank you for being so gracious, not just with your time, but like coaching me and having that real example. I think it's going to be super, super powerful for people to see what that experience is like through the lens of the one thing. So, Geoff, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a productive day.
Thanks so much, Amber.
I have loved having you listen to Productivity Straight Talk, but I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on what you learned today, what will you take action on? All right, guys, you just heard me get coached by Geoff Woods of The One Thing. We went deep, and I think this was an amazing, amazing opportunity for you to see what it's like to be coached. I myself have my own business coaches. I believe heavily in partnering with somebody that can make you think differently, ask you the deep and hard questions, allow you to get that focus and clarity. And that is exactly what Geoff Woods did for us today by exempling how to be coached around the one thing. You heard that my one thing was doing a downward facing dog exercise or stretch. And I'm happy to report that I did get him the tracking sheet the next day and that I have been doing it. And I've got to tell you that I've been stretching far, far more. I've been keeping it top of mind with reminders from Habit Bowl. So what I ended up doing is adding it to my Habit Bowl app that gives me reminders daily because I felt like I needed that prompting more regularly until it became a habit. And I'm happy to report that I have only missed one day in the last 2 weeks. So that is some great, great improvement. And that has also been why I've been traveling. And so I just want to add that in there. You don't need to wait to start a new habit. And it's always going to be a reason why we shouldn't start today and tomorrow's a better day. The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time to start is today. Based on what you experienced in this episode and what you learned and how you saw that I was coached, what is it for you that you're willing to take action on? What is it for you that is your one thing? Because if you're not really, really, really clear about your one thing, I experienced that it felt too overwhelming, that it didn't seem like it could possibly be one thing. So I'm challenging you to go out and find your one thing. For all of my current Productivity Straight Talk insiders, those who belong to our private Facebook community, I can't wait to be chatting with you and talking to you about what your one thing is and offering support about perhaps finding what your one thing is. If you are already not a member of our free Productivity Straight Talk community, you can join us by going to productivitycommunity.com. We look forward to seeing you on the inside. Before we go today, I want to thank you so much for leaving me some amazing reviews and sharing Productivity Straight Talk with other entrepreneurs. You're not just sharing information, you're giving the gift of improved productivity and maximize profits. I have a special thanks going out to user L. Gilpatrick, who recently said, I've been listening to Amber's podcast for 4 months, and her approach to productivity has had a tremendous impact on my work activity. I listen to our podcast almost daily to get my mindset fixed on productivity as I drive to work. I recommend this for anyone who is ready to take responsibility for their success. She helps you identify mindset changes and habit changes to get your business in motion. Thank you so much for that review. So that's my straight talk for you today. And until next time, have a productive week.